Hi everybody, welcome to Missy's Imaginings. Today we're going to continue sewing pieces for the Mori set outfit. So in the last video we put together this little jumper. This is the creamy yellowish color with the little textured bits on it that reminds me of like a chenille bedspread, you know, the old-fashioned ones that have the little lumpy parts. And it turned out really well. The drape was really pretty. We also sewed the lace top that looks like this. I'll put my hand behind there just to give a little dark color back there. So we did this lace top, and then we also sewed the lace leggings. So that is the video entitled number 1. This will be, of course, number 2. So for video number 2, we're also sewing these pieces to fit the Angel Studio Huarong, who, as you can tell by the lighting, has a very, this is just the doll stand, but she has a very curvy figure, and a lot more so than a couple of my other dolls that are pretty slim and straight through the hips, but she has a fuller figure here. And the other part, like her bust line, is pretty much the same, but her waist is bigger and her hips are bigger, and also her shoulders are more broad. And so all in all, she just has a fuller figure, and she also has the high heel feet, which I really like. So we're going to continue this outfit. Today we have the gray, real soft cotton. It's not a seersucker, but it has that gauze look. And I mentioned in the fabric choices video for preparing for this that on the bolts it actually said cotton gauze as the fabric type, so it didn't have any other name other than a cotton gauze, and so it has that kind of a wavy ribbed texture to it, but it is really soft. If we take out just one layer of this fabric, it's very, very soft, and it hangs really nice. And we also have the fabric cut for the ruffle for that, and then I also have, oh, that's not the right lace, here's the right lace, lace that will go on the skirt. So I have the lace and the ruffle and the skirt pieces cut. Then I did cut, just for the sake of grins, I had some of the blue knit fabric, and it's a cotton knit, that we're going to use these pieces for the little boot wraps, like the little boot cuffs that'll go around the top of the ankle. And I have that, and we can embellish that a little bit and have fun with that. Then I also have cut out the vest out of, and this fabric, I couldn't resist, drape or not, I just thought it was fantastic. And I need something so you can actually see. I have some blue cut out here for some male pants, but it's a wide enough piece that I can put this on top of it. So it's a tool that has pearls attached and some gold glitter. So I'll kind of, hopefully the light will catch that in the camera. But I'm going to do the vest in this lovely transparent tool that has pearls on it, just because I liked it. So that will be our vest. And then I also cut out the sweater pieces from the very interesting knit. Oh, I'll get the blue again. That kind of helps, having the blue behind it. A pink, it's like a dusty pink, strange, it's almost lacy, but almost like a sweatery, I don't know. It's very heavy, lacy, weird stuff, but the texture of it feels like a sweater more so than a lace. And so this is the fabric I'm going to use for the sweater. So in putting these pieces together, as I mentioned in doing these pieces, I want to minimize bulk on the pieces, just because there's so many layers. Because right now we already have 3. So we have the leggings, we have the jumper, we have a top that can go either under the jumper or above the jumper. Then we're going to have a skirt, and we're going to have a sweater and a vest. So if for some reason you want to use all the layers at one time, we don't want to add a lot of bulk by adding a lot of facing pieces. So when we finish this, I'm just going to reference you to the video where we made these on different ways to apply a bias tape binding for edging necklines and arm lines. And then when I apply the collar on this piece, I'm not going to have a back facing. I'm just going to finish that seam so that I'm not adding extra bulk. And just a brief review in case you didn't watch that video and you're not really interested in it. This, I just turned this over along a stay stitching line and snipped my seam allowance a little bit and turned it over because I want as little bulk as possible because of all these layers. So I'm trying to minimize that wherever I have seams. The other thing, and I'll go over a little bit more when I do the skirt, is on this ruffle, sometimes you'll see ruffles that are actually a wide piece of fabric, or whatever the width, and you can take the fabric and fold it, and then if you gather along the edge that's the raw edges and then just iron it, you have a ruffle that is finished on both sides of the ruffle because the fabric has been folded. But on this, that would create 2 layers of fabric for the entire ruffle, and I don't want to do that. So I am simply going to turn this up 1/4 of an inch and hem the edge and then gather the top. So I'll have, the ruffle will be almost this wide, but it will just be turned up a little bit on the edge for a hem. And that way most of the ruffle is only going to be 1 layer of fabric. So that's what I'm going to do on the ruffle for the skirt, and then we'll apply a little bit of lace. And when I was choosing lace, here again, a lot of the laces were very, very stiff. And so I found one that has the typical part where you sew, the actual seam, but the lace itself is very thin and flexible. So I wanted something that was softer, and so this lace is a little bit more soft than several of the ones that I was looking through to choose what I wanted. So that's kind of what the pieces look like. So we'll go ahead and switch up the camera since we have quite a few to get through today, and see how many we can actually finish. Here are the skirt pieces. That's how I'm going to start, and it's going to be fairly simple. Like I said, we're not going to add a lot of bulk. It's just going to be very simply put together. So I'm going to start by putting all the skirt pieces together in a line, and there are 4. Now you can adapt this skirt pattern to be as full as you want it. You can add 1 more panel, you can add 2, you can double them for 8. It is totally up to you, which is the fun part of this pattern. Because the pieces are all exactly the same, you can customize that to however you want the pattern to look. And so the first step is simply going to be to sew all these pieces together. Then once all these panels for the skirt are together, I am going to run the seams through the serger just so I can finish those edges. If you don't have a serger, you can always put a very small tight zigzag down the seam allowance to kind of keep that from fraying and hold it in place. The next thing I'm going to do is to assemble the ruffle, which will simply be sewing all these ends together so I have a really long ruffle. Then I will hem one edge, and I will put, and because it's so long, I'm going to put 2 basting stitches along the seam allowance edge, and then I will gather all this ruffle to match the length of the hem of the skirt. So that's what I'm going to do with the gray pieces. So again, we're going to assemble, finish the edges. We're going to assemble all the ruffle pieces end to end, hem one edge, and put a basting stitch in the other, and then I will gather that to match the length of the zigzag hem of the skirt. So we'll get all that done and come back to the camera, and hopefully this video won't be as long as the last one. Hopefully we'll kind of expedite some of our steps here, and it'll go together a little quicker and be less intrusive on your time. So that's what we're going to do for the skirt thus far, and then we'll be back. Now the ruffle has been put on the hem of the skirt, so this is what it looks like. And the next thing I'm going to do is to add the lace on the edge. Now you can, if you want an easy guide, just sew the edge of the lace right onto where that ruffle is attached to the skirt, but I want, hopefully my hand won't be in the way, I want more of the ruffle to show than just this much. So here it's only about a ½ inch. So I am going to place the lace almost a ½ inch higher than the actual seam where that ruffle is attached. So it'll be about a ½ inch up, so that more of the ruffle will actually show underneath the edge of that lace. When I get to the little V part on the corner, if you just simply pivot your needle and turn your lace, you're going to end up with this weird pucker here. So what you want to do is to actually fold your lace and make a little, see how I'm kind of pinching that, and then lay that little pinch down, because then that is going to give you enough lace to make that corner. So you want to do that little pinch, and you can get the little pinch, and it's about a ½ inch, and you can simply lay it over, or the same way we did on the casing for the lace leggings, you can just kind of tap that down. There we go. And lay it like so, and create just a little bitty pleat on each side, but it gives you enough lace on the hem edge to make that corner without pulling tight like this. Because if you just try to wrap it, it's going to pull, and there's not enough hem on the lace to make that corner. So you want to go up, and like I say, it's just about a ½ inch, and you can kind of tap it down, and it'll make a little pleat, and then there you go. You'll have enough lace to turn that. And what you can do is sew to the very corner and then back tack a little, then create your little pleat, push it down, and then sew back over the top into the center of that pleat, turn your corner, and you'll have enough lace to make that V corner down on the hemline. So that's just kind of a little tip. Once you get down to that hem, here we'll push it down here, so that it'll make that corner, and it'll lay and be even with the ruffle that you already have. I didn't worry a lot about it since I had so much ruffle. I just made sure I had enough gathers when I went around those corners with the gray ruffle. So that's my next step on the skirt, is I'm simply going to add this lace. I may go ahead and then later stitch a ribbon on top if I want to add some color, but I may just leave it simple and just sew this on. Then once the lace is on, I will put the right sides together. I will start at the hemline and sew all the way up, there we go, to about here, and then back tack so that I have an opening, because my opening would not go over her hips. So I want to have an opening that's big enough, and then I will create a casing as well. But on this casing, because the back is going to have an opening, I'm going to anchor one end of the elastic and then pull it through and then anchor the other end. So it will have elastic in a casing, but I won't be running it all the way through and having the elastic anchor to itself. It'll be anchored on each edge, and then I will also go ahead and put a snap closure on that. So there will be some elastic just to kind of make sure that it'll stay around her waist, but I'm not going to sew all the way up to the top, because this opening would not go over her hips. Now if you choose to add more panels, you're going to have more length here that would more easily go over the doll's hips, but I didn't want to add that much fullness. I'm just using the 4 pieces. So that's how we can finish this off, and then our skirt will be done. So it's pretty quick and easy, other than trying to get all these gathers on the ruffle. But so we'll go ahead and finish this up and then take a look at it. And here is the skirt. So this is what all the lace looks like. And sorry, my shadow's kind of leaning over there, but it's not like super extra fancy. It's just the lace just sewn on the edges, but I just didn't want to add more stuff. I just wanted it to kind of be just the lace. And then here's how the ruffle turned out. So if I'll flip this up, there we go. You can see here, I just turned it up and hemmed it. So I just didn't want to add a lot of bulk. And some of these fabrics are so sheer, if I try to do one single layer through my serger, it kind of tears that. I don't know if it's the feed dogs are too tight or what, but I didn't want to risk it. So this is the skirt. I used 4 panels. So we'll spin her around, and it has the point at the center of each panel. And like I say, you can add more panels if you want, or less panels. The lace does kind of make it a little stiff at the hem, and so I do have that little issue. But I think it's heavy enough that it doesn't stick way out, you know, like this. It just kind of hangs in folds, so it's not too bad. Not too bad. And then at the top, I just turned it over and made the little turnover and put elastic in the waist. I probably didn't need to because it just barely fits her. She has kind of a big waist and those hips going on. So this skirt probably could have benefited from an extra panel. So if you want to make 5 panels, you would not have the seam in the front there. The other option is if you want to turn the skirt, you can feasibly, like here, oh sorry, the camera got a little wonky there. So here with the seam in the front, that means it's going to go up in the front and the points are going to come down at the sides. But if you want to have the extra panel, it would put a point in the front instead. Or you could take this that's 4 panels, and if you don't mind the snap placement, that's her hair's in the way again, you could shift it over so that the snap would be like here on the side, and go ahead and have her wear the skirt with one of these points in the front. So it's just kind of whatever you want to do with it. Again, she has on the little bodysuit just so that she has something on the top. And so yeah, so there's the skirt. So I think our next, let's see, our next piece will probably be the sweater. We'll do the sweater next. So we'll get the camera switched around and start working on the sweater. Here are the pieces for the little sweater that we're going to put together. So I have the front and the front pieces, and I cut these on the edge of the fabric because it's already has the milled edge that won't ravel, and it's kind of already a design in and of itself. And so I will probably iron that just to kind of press it out because it's a little wrinkly there on the edge, and I'll probably press that out flat on those pieces. I have 2 sleeve pieces. I cut the collar along the edge as well, and so I'll go ahead and press that little bit out just to kind of show off that little edging there as well. And then I have the back piece, so it's going to be pretty simple. I also have the ruffle for the sleeves cut out here that will just be, it won't be a lot of ruffle, as you can tell, because it's not a lot longer than the edge of the sleeve here, but it'll just be enough to have a slight ruffle on the sleeves. And then I also have a piece cut for the ruffle on the hemline that's going to be this contrasting gauze fabric. Then I also have just an extra little piece of the gauze fabric and a little piece of this real pretty little print. I kept a couple scraps of that I'm going to use to do just little contrasting patchwork pockets. And so it'll be a combination of both of these pieces that will tie the ruffle together, and then also just give just that little bit of a pop to the design. If you want it to be just more of a silhouette classic look, you could forego the ruffles and just do the sweater, you know, just however you want to do it. There's just a lot of options. So the first step I'm going to do is press these edges. Then I will go ahead and attach the shoulder seams of the fronts to the shoulder seam on the back. That's kind of the standard order that I use. So I'll put those in place. Then I am going to serge just the edge of that seam allowance just to kind of hold it in place. Then I will also be basting across the top of this sleeve, and this doesn't really ravel, and there is quite a bit of fabric here just in the thickness of the actual weave or pattern of the cloth. And so I probably won't worry about the fray check on this one, but I will do 2 lines of basting with a large stitch so that I can ease that line into the armhole section. And then I will go ahead and put ruffles. Well, I guess we won't get there yet. But then we'll go ahead and get the sleeves put in, and then I might go ahead and do the ruffle on the sleeve hem, because I like to have the sleeves finished before I actually put them in the sweater. It's just easier to work with them. So I will probably go ahead and on the sleeve pieces, I don't want a huge ruffle, so I will probably just fold the fabric and then gather it and have a shorter ruffle on the sweater and on the sleeves than I did on the skirt, because I don't need that extra length. I still haven't decided about the one on the sweater. I don't know if I'll leave it long or not, but on the sleeves I'll probably just fold this and baste across the raw edge and gather that to meet the edge of the sleeve. Once I get it sewn on, then I will go ahead and serge the edge of the seam allowance just to give it a more finished look, and then turn the seam allowance will be turned towards the sweater. I'll kind of see how that looks, but I don't think I want to turn it back down towards the ruffle because it would make it even more stiff to have more fabric down there. So I think that's my order. Let's see, I need to recap so I remember what I said. Shoulders first, then serge the seam allowance to finish it, baste up here on the sleeves, on the shoulder of the sleeves, go ahead and attach the ruffles to the sleeve hem. Yeah, then I'll come back to the camera. Here are the sleeves with the ruffle attached, and I did run the very edge through the serger with a rolled edge on there, and then I did go ahead and top stitch that with the ruffle seam allowance up towards the sleeve just to help it lay a little bit better so it wouldn't want to flip out, and then top stitch that. And I think that looks okay. It doesn't look like I've added too much, you know, of a problem area around the edge that will deter from the sleeve design. And then I did get that basted on the top, and there seemed to be plenty of fabric on here to run that basting stitch through, so I only did 1 line of basting rather than 2. So those are ready to pucker that up a little bit so I can fit it into the armhole sleeves. And then I did the shoulders here, and I went ahead and I did finish off that edge and then turned the seam allowance towards the back and top stitch that. Just gives a little bit of extra support there on the shoulders since it'll hang from the shoulders. I did press this, and let me double check my lens here and see if you can see it. Let's see, I might put my hand underneath here. I did press this edge, and it was kind of difficult. It didn't want to lay very flat, and so with use it will probably wrinkle up again, but that will add to the look that it's, you know, an actual garment and it's being worn all the time. But when I'm sewing and putting things together, I wanted that kind of flat just to help my fabric be flat, but if it kind of wrinkles back up after it's done, that's totally fine. So I have that much done. Then on the collar, I thought I would show what I did here. So this collar is not going to have any lining. A lot of times my collars have 2 layers to them, and so it's finished on both sides, but because this is a lace and it already has a decorative edge that I used, all I wanted to do was to finish up the edges of the sides, and to do that I thought I'd show you how I chose to do that. So I just took a little piece of bias tape and I just cut it down the middle, and then I lined up the edge of the lace fabric with the center fold that remained, and I sewed this on the wrong side of the fabric. Then I'm going to get my handy dandy little scissors here, and I'm just going to trim away everything that's extra. So this is how I do this, and I'm trimming right to the edge of the fabric here. There we go. Trim away everything I don't need, because all I'm doing is adding a little bit so that it will be easier to turn those layers of lace in without losing any of my little edges, because some tend to want to poke out. So now with this sewn on the wrong side, all I have to do is kind of roll it over the edge of that little tiny strip of fabric, and I'm just going to sew it down. And that's all I did to finish that. And so that fabric just gives me something against which I can turn the lace, and then when it's finished, you know, I just top stitch on the top of there. It just looks like this. So it doesn't look like I've added a lot of bulk or anything in there. It's just enough to give me a finished edge on the edge of that collar, so it's not just raw fabric. So I'm just doing that to both ends, and then of course this edge is the edge that will actually attach to the sweater. So the next thing I'm going to do is find the center of my collar simply by folding, and I can mark the center with a pin. Well, first I have to finish that other edge that I need to sew, but I'll fold it in half and find the center, and I'm going to match the center of the collar with the center back, and then I'm going to go ahead and pin it there and open these up like so, and pin it down and sew. And then what I will do is I will probably take another little strip of that same bias tape and go from one edge of the neckline, let me see if that's showing, not quite, from one edge of the neckline all the way around to the other front edge, and I'll do the same method that I did on the collar, so that it gives me something to simply turn that over so that I'll have a finished edge, because the collar is not going to go all the way to the corners, because then they can lay out a little bit, but it will be folded in and have just that little rolled hem there. That's all I'm going to worry about because of the way this lace drapes, and it'll probably just kind of hang down, so it's going to be fine. But that's all I'm going to do, because here again I'm trying to do as little layers as possible when I build these garments, because the whole outfit is several layers. So I'm trying to minimize the amount of fabric that I'm actually using. So that's how I'm going to go ahead and finish that as well. I'll pin this in place, then take, and I'll probably baste it just to hold it there. Then take a little bit of that bias tape, and on the wrong side, just take a little thin strip around, trim away what I don't need, and then simply fold it over and tack it down. And so that's what will finish out that part of the neckline. Once that's done, I can go ahead and fit my sleeves in. I match up the two outside edges with the outside edges of the sleeves, pin my way towards the center, and go ahead and sew that in. So that's my next steps to work on our little sweater. Here are all the pieces thus far. So we have the collar on with the little edges finished, and just that little rim that I used to turn under. So it's just very minimal as far as affecting the look of the lace. I have the sleeves in with the ruffles on the end of the sleeves. So there's both the sleeves. So here's the front. So what I'm going to do now is turn it like this, so it's inside out. just like that. And I will start at the hem of a ruffle at one end of the sleeve, go up to the underarm, and then back down the side. There it is. I'll kind of line them up. And then I'll do the same on the other side. So we'll flip it here. I think I flipped it too many times here. There we go. So we'll start at the end of the sleeve and go up to the underarm and then down. And then once the sweater is all put together, I will go ahead and make the ruffle for the bottom of the sweater. And I'm going to use this, so I just need to gather it, and then I will adjust the gathers to match the hemline. And then since this already has a finished edge on the lace that I'm using, I'm just going to take and turn in 2 times here so that this will be finished, and then it'll be hemmed, and so that way the front edge will be a finished edge that will show as far as the front of the sweater, and then it'll be hemmed. So I will do that much the same as I did on the skirt, so it will be very minimal, and then I won't have to worry about too much bulk on the bottom of this. I also wanted to mention on the sleeves, because I folded this in half, I took my little iron and I just gently pressed down the very edge of the hem so that it would make this fold a little bit more distinct instead of just being real rounded. Because if you just fold it like this, you get kind of a round, you know, bulgy fold here. So I just, after it was on there, I just pressed the very edge of that so that it would be a nice creased edge for the little hemline. But I didn't press it a lot because I didn't want to get rid of that little gauzy ruffle that's already in the fabric, and so I didn't want to ruin the texture of that, so I just kind of went right around the edge there. So, and then I'll probably do that on the hem of this one as well, just so it'll just have kind of a nice crisp edge on there instead of being real rounded. But then it will be finished. I'm not going to do anything else to it. It's just a little throw around sweater. Oh, except for the little decorative pocket that I might put on. I'm not sure how I want to do it yet, but I know it would be these 2 fabrics, so I'll kind of play with them and see what I like. And then when it's done, we'll go ahead and put on the doll and see how it looks all finished. So here is our finished sweater on the doll. So we have the little pockets. This is what I decided to do on the pockets. I just put a little ruffle and did little, maybe it'll focus, maybe not. I did little patch pockets on the same fabric as the ruffle, and then the little knit fabric. And yeah, I'm happy with this. So it has, once again, that real pretty little drape. It just kind of hangs. And so far, the layers that we have, we'll kind of go from the bottom up. We have the lace leggings underneath here. So that's like the bottom layer. Then we have the skirt here is all finished. Then I did put the little jumper underneath the blouse just because I love this lace. And if I put this underneath, you'd only be able to see the very, very top if the sweater is on. And so I went ahead and put the jumper underneath because the jumper has enough length that you can still see all this underneath the length of the top. So that way we can kind of show off this lace, and then the sweater is on top. So this is what it looks like with all of the layers together. And we'll go ahead and turn her around and kind of see the back of the sweater with the outfit. So here's all our layers, and they kind of get a little bunched with the doll stand. So there's like one point here, then it ruffles around. Here's the other point, and then the jumper has a point here and one here, and then here's our sweater. We'll go ahead and move her hair. There we go. So here's the back of the sweater. So I love this texture. And here again, we were looking for fabric that would fall nicely. And this fabric, believe it or not, I got at Walmart, and it was in one of those pre-packaged things that was like 2 yards for $2. And I just love how this worked out on her sweater. So then we'll move her hair back out of the way as we come back around, and take a look at the ruffle on the sleeves. So the end of each sleeve is going to have that cute little ruffle. And then the edge, I'm very happy that I kept the edge, because it just, if it falls open, it doesn't matter. And it's just supposed to be just a little throw over, which is kind of what I was looking for. So all in all, this is how the outfit looks, and I'm very happy thus far. The only other two things that we have to do still would be for the little cuffs that will go over the top of the boots and the vest. And so those are going to be the vest is just simply sewing the shoulders and the sides and finishing off the armholes and around the edge. You don't even need to, because it's tulle. So that's not really going to have anything more to it than the rest of these pieces. But we will go ahead and take a look at how we're going to decorate the little cuffs that will cover the top of the boots. So we'll do that next. And then I think we'll have everything pretty much finished, and I will go ahead and get the vest done so we can see it and kind of show anything particular that comes up and how we have to deal with that. But like I say, it's just a vest made out of tulle, so it's not going to have a lot of complication to it. So there again is the little outfit. So we'll do the boot cuffs, and then we'll be good to go. So I decided, rather than just turn over the edges of the tulle or leave them as they are, I am going to go ahead and wrap the edges of the neckline and the arm and the hem with some soft and easy hem tape. It's in a creamy color, and it's just a silky binding. So it's not bias, but it's just a silky binding tape that you can use on hems and stuff. And I'm just going to fold it in half and then wrap that around the edge of the front, and just so it'll have a pretty edge. I was going to just kind of leave it more plain, but I thought, well, we'll go ahead and add that because it's kind of pretty and it's the same color as the tulle. And then my pieces are this gold flecked tulle. Let's see if it'll show up there. That has the pearl accents that are attached to it, which is just really fun. So we'll see if I can get the binding on there so it looks nice. And because I'm going to just wrap the edges, I am going to trim away the seam allowance on the arms, and then a little bit of the neckline and around the back of the neckline, just so that my opening will be big enough. But I'm not going to make the front extra narrow. I'll probably just take just a little bit out, and so that my garment will fit right, because I'm going to just take a little bit out, so it'll be, the edge would be where the seam allowance is. So that's what I'm going to do on this. I wasn't going to go to all that trouble, but I thought, well, you know, we're making a fancy outfit, we'll go ahead and step it up a little bit. So here is the little finished vest that is the little pearled tulle. So we'll kind of, I think is it my hand? Oh, I guess it's the shadow of the camera itself. So it has the little pearls on the outside, and this was not a very fun process. Fortunately, I had been strategic when I cut the pieces to make sure that there were no pearls on the seam lines, but still some of them were pretty close. Then to make sure that we weighted this enough so that it would hang, I went ahead and did some beading and just hung that from the tips. I was going to do gold tassels, but I hadn't had time to look around and get any, and I really didn't have materials to make any, so I just went ahead and beaded a little bead tassel, if you will, and sewed it to the end to give some weight to hold those tips down the way they're supposed to, because the tool tends to want to kind of creep up because it's so lightweight. And we'll move some hair here, but so you can kind of see the little gold flakes and the little pearls on there. So it's a little more blingy than the Mori outfits that I saw online, but with this tulle fabric with the pearls on it, I just couldn't resist. I gotta have a little bling in there sometimes. So this is how the vest turned out, and it's very sheer, so you can still see whatever the garment is underneath, and you can even kind of see the lace through it. So it's kind of just a fun little accent piece to put on top of something. It'd probably look really good if the garment underneath actually had some color, but anyway, there we go. So that's the little beaded vest. So that's all done, and I like the choice that I made for this seam binding because it has a little bit of a silky finish to it rather than the flat finish of just bias tape. So it just kind of matches the little bling of the gold and the shine of the pearls better than the other would have to trim out the edges. So I am glad with the choice. It was not a very fun one to put together. So, yeah, but it's kind of like, well, I chose the fabric, so now I have to kind of, you know, just make the best of it. So, but I am happy with how it turned out. So there we go. So there's the little vest. And the next item that we'll work on will be the little cuffs for the boot. So we'll get those done and then we'll be done. Now it's time to work on our little boot cuffs. And so what I've done is I've just grabbed some of my pearls from one box, some ribbon for another box, some French, what do they call that? Eyelet lace that I actually split in two because I only wanted the one layer. And I just went ahead and I'm going to decorate one side of the little cuff. Then when they're decorated like this, I'll take the other one and just lay it with right sides together. And I'll go ahead and start at the bottom. I'll stitch all the way around and leave just enough room so I can turn it right side out. And then once it's turned right side out, I'm still not decided if I'll top stitch it. I might just leave it, but then the little boot cuffs will be done, and then they're designed. We'll swing on over here. Oh, if I can get that out of the way. So we'll swing on over here, and then when they're finished, they're just gonna go around the cuff of the boot. And so it's just a little decorative cuff to go around the boot. And then if you don't have boots and you only have shoes, but you want them to look like a little decorated cuff boots, you can always just put this atop of a shoe as well. So that's all they are, just a little decorative thing to put around the ankle part. And so yeah, so this is what I've kind of chosen. I sewed on the little eyelet ruffle there, then I hand stitched on the pearls, and then I hand stitched on a little pink ribbon just to kind of decorate it and make it look kind of fun. So yeah, so that's all there is to it. Then I just put the two pieces together like a pillow, and then I'll probably just put a good snap at the top, and then the inside when it wraps around, and so it'll just snap. So the inside of the foot, you know, we'll just have this part, but then the outside will look like that. So there we go. So we'll get this done, and then all the pieces for this particular set will be finished. But I have started work on the pieces that I cut from other fabrics. I've posted some of the photos on Instagram and Facebook. And so I did end up using this lovely little blue rosebud to make a top, and I did change the sleeves a little bit. I added a little bit more puff to the shoulder, not a lot, but then I also shortened them and made them not so flared as the other. And then I didn't have enough fabric. This is all I had of the rosebud, so we just made the back of it blue. So there we go. And then I did make some leggings out of this same fabric that we're making the little boot cuffs out of, which turned out really cute. And so yeah, I still have several pieces I need to put together, but we're starting on what I cut for the second assembly set. There you go. And here is the finished outfit. And I went ahead and just strung up some beads and pearls that would match the tassel beads on the vest to kind of tie it all together. And then the little boot cuffs down here match the pockets on the sweater, so it kind of ties it together. So there's all the pieces. I was going to go ahead and show all the other pieces that I cut of different fabrics, but I don't have them all sewed yet, except for the two that I've already shown you. So I'm going to go ahead and call this good as far as this outfit is concerned. And yeah, I'll go ahead and get those sewn, and I'll probably post some pictures of those when I get them done, and then maybe show them in a later video. But for now, we're just going to call this outfit good so we can get this edited and posted so that you'll have the full tutorial on putting these pieces together. So until next time, happy sewing. Bye.